In today's video, I'm going to break down a real deal that looked good on paper, but once I got to the property, it was terrible in real life. It didn't quite make sense at all. So I walked through this property for one of my students, and they don't necessarily live here, but halfway through it, I knew this was a disaster. It wasn't gonna make sense at all. I am going to break down exactly why this deal just wasn't gonna make sense. The numbers just don't work, and why it is very important for you to spot these red flags when you're working with a wholesaler so you don't lose your money when you give them EMD. Now, this is important for those of you who are in this space and you want to flip properties and you want to buy properties for your rental portfolio that are distressed, that needs renovation so you can have an appreciation factor, right? You buy these destroyed or disastrous property that has been poorly maintained, not in the right condition, or people have fallen on hard times and they necessarily can't do the maintenance and it's deferred, right? So this is where it comes in. Let's talk about this. It's how to make real estate full circle. If we haven't met yet, my name is Gene Garant. I'm a real estate investor, lender, and coach. If you're new to the channel, hey, this is what I do full time. I invest in real estate, I lend, and I also coach people go through this process. I take people from their first 90 days into finding their first property, either to fix and flip or convert to a rental. The reason why this is important is that when you're going through this process, you want to make sure that you're taking the proper steps and the proper precautions not to get duped or had by a wholesaler. Now, not all wholesalers are created equally, right? Some wholesalers are good and they're tried and true. They've been tested before and they're good wholesalers. And I'm not saying anything in this particular situation. I'm just giving a scenario of what's going on and what I thought was possibly made, what I just think about the situation in general. So let's be clear about something. The wholesaler clearly has a property on the contract, and that contract gives them rights to sell the property, and the seller has sold that, has sold those rights in essence and write down the contract. I'm not telling you guys to go around any wholesalers. I'm not advocating for that, and I don't want you to do that. I want you to be respectful. That's why I respectfully walked away from this, because it didn't make sense, right? It's going to be a time where they both come to their senses and say, hey, it's not gonna make sense, or they're gonna find someone else who's not me to buy it. I know that this doesn't make sense. Okay, let's set the scene for this. Right now, this particular property that I'm walking right now in this video is occupied by the seller. The wholesaler has it under contract and the seller themselves have no idea what's going on. This is typically something that happens quite often with wholesalers. They go around the bush, they don't tell them exactly what's going on, they don't give them a clear process. They act like they're actually buying the property when what's really happening is they're assigning the property to someone else. They are the mediator, the go-to. They don't clearly explain it to the homeowner. That's very evident when I'm walking through this space and he's asking me questions that I clearly cannot say in order not to breach that buyer and wholesaler agreement, right? So I don't want to breach that. But it's very evident. This homeowner doesn't know what the heck is going on, and they're just scheduling people to come through, and he clearly doesn't understand. He's asking me questions I can't really explain to him. But as I'm walking through this property, I can clearly see where there's been some overstep. The asking price they're asking for it doesn't make any sense. Now, this property is one of my out-of-state students, and I'm walking the property for him because we're gonna fund it for him, and that way he can actually flip it. But upon me looking at this and talking to this individual, I understood that the asking price just doesn't make sense, because there's no way and no margin and no way in the world that would make sense. The only way it would make sense is for them to decrease it by $20,000. The homeowner already said, hey, he already understands how much it's going to walk away from. When I told him the house needs $80,000 to $90,000, he was in utter shock. And I don't think he was even aware of it. I had to point things out to him. For a point example, look at some of this footage right here. So it's always going to look that way when you first get it. But you know, life happens sometimes. All right. The roof seems like it's bad. Needs complete roof overhaul.
He's inside now.
Okay. All right.
He's looking.
All right. Cool. Definitely. Kitchen. Is there any rooms I can't go in?
No, you can go.
Okay, cool. What's here?
Oh, that's laundry.
Oh, okay. I always like to ask, man. I don't like just hopping in.
I understand. I can do the same thing for you.
All right, so water heater, laundry, and this is like the cover port?
Okay. If you need me to go in there.
Nah, that's fine. We're good with that. Okay.
Moving to Atlanta, man.
Oh man, you going to a good spot.
Yeah.
All right, we have bathroom here. Okay. All right. Boom, boom, boom. Cool beans. Was this like a patio or? Cause I don't see AC in here.
A sunroom.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? There is. You see that?
Oh, okay,
right
okay.
underneath that.
So what's back here then?
That's a closet.
And that goes into the.
No, that doesn't go anywhere. That's it right there.
But that wall behind it, is that the laundry? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's where the bathroom going then. Okay. Definitely a bathroom will have to go here. Okay. The AC is being ran through this box, so I can never really raise this part up because all your electrical and wires, all that stuff probably being ran through here, and that's what's feeding the rest of the room. So you see how we can go from here to here? Mm-hmm. It's high here.
Yeah.
All right, and then if you go,
pay that any mind.
yeah, I'm just educating you a little bit. So everything is centrally in your house is right here. Okay. So this space is where probably the nucleus of your house is at. If you go from here to here, you see your ceiling goes, it fluctuates.
Yeah.
So everything is here. So anything you do, you would have to do here. And it looks like you got to do new insulation too. And then you got to repair the boards and you have some termites. So you got a lot more work, like just looking at it for sure. Yeah, you can see it here if you want to take a look at it. But not the worst house I've seen. I've seen way. When I say where I can't walk in it like this, I got to wear a mask, I got to wear a suit. Things are a lot different. Your house is that you have like stuff that's like deferred maintenance, but you don't have rodents running in your, like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's still clean. You know what I'm saying? So most people, they'll have like this cluster, rodents. I was like, I was like, nah, I'm good. So I'd rather pass on that. Yeah. Now, contracts are contracts. We understand that. So don't try to sneak around. Don't cross these boundaries because you have to work with these wholesalers down the line. If the numbers don't work, they just clearly don't work and you move on to the next deal. Clearly, from the beginning, the numbers didn't make sense for the seller anyway, and the wholesaler probably either didn't look at the numbers the correct way or just was overzealous. That happens. So in this case, I just walked away. I didn't want to burn any bridge and I didn't want to interfere anything that's contractually between those two. I was just a buyer, or in my case, I was just a person reviewing the deal for my students so he wouldn't get burned or lose money. So I just politely walked away. So for some of you who don't understand how wholesaling works, they assign the property for one price. So they go to the wholesaler and say, hey, I'm gonna buy this property from you for $150,000. They take the $150,000 and they go market the property to other investors like myself, my students, and possibly you who watching the video. They take that property they got for $150,000. They probably put a $20,000 or $30,000 markup and they advertise it for $180,000. What happens is when they do that, they are essentially telling the buyer they're buying it for $150,000. Now, when somebody like me comes and walk the property and see that the numbers don't make sense, which is the ARV, the rehab cost, my interest cost on the loan, and all these other procuring factors along the way, when you're looking at this property for you to hold it for 4 to 6 months in this market where you gotta buy it, take 1 or 2 months to fix it, then another 1 or 2 months to sell it. So it's about 4 to 5 months. And if the market is soft in this particular area, possibly put a 2-month more cushion on there. If the numbers don't make sense, you have to therefore go back to the seller to reduce it. Now, this is what happens. The seller in their mind already has this price in their head when you tell them $150. They're thinking about the outcome. Think about it, right? When you're expecting money and you already know it, you've already spent it already in your head. So when the wholesaler has to come back and say, hey, we can do a price reduction, there becomes a conflict. That conflict becomes a problem between the seller and the wholesaler. The seller and the wholesaler now have an issue. Do I discount it to sell to them, or do I try to sell on my own? And this is what happens to most people. They don't understand the dynamics of real estate themselves. And this is why I think it's challenging by making this video. If you're selling your property, make sure you actually get an inspection. And if you don't know the condition of it, make sure that you're working with someone that actually tells you the truth. Now, let me go back to what I'm saying in general, because this kind of bothers me a little bit because this gentleman, I can clearly see I can help him, but because of that buffer, that $20,000 or $10,000, they're not willing to meet. And I can't say it's the wholesaler and I can't say it's the seller because the seller is probably naive that he thinks that property only needs $40,000, $50,000 in renovations, or the wholesaler doesn't tell the whole story to begin with. So that conflict creates tension, right? And no buyers can actually really come through and buy the property. That is where the problem lies, right then and there. So you're trying to negotiate, you're trying to be the middleman for two sides of the party, the buyer and the seller. The seller you represent, and then you're trying to get a buyer as well, and you're trying to make your spread in the middle. So what happens? There's a wholesaler discount $10,000, and there's a seller discount $10,000. That's a rare case. But if that does happen, all parties win. Let's go. But Since there's so much confusion in the beginning, it's hard to do so because you are not clearly upfront. So that's where things kind of lie right there and there. So let's go over these numbers. I'm gonna pull up my phone here so we can go over these numbers. They were offering the property for $185,000. If I'm not mistaken, don't hold me to this. It was $185,000. And the house needed about $90,000 in repairs. So we're right at $275,000. Now buffer about a good contingency plan of about $10,000. Let's add the $10,000. We're right at $285,000. Now, if you factor in holding costs, commissions, title fees, points you're gonna pay, origination, all these things, right? I'm gonna say for all of that, right? I'm just gonna do a safe estimate. Let's just say $25,000. We're at $310,000. Let me tell you how much the property would sell for on the open market. The open market, it was gonna sell for roughly around $340,000. So if we're at 310, it's about $30,000. Here's what happens though in this market. You have to offer up closing costs. And the longer you hold the property, the more you pay in interest, right? And the longer property sits on the market, the more buyers have negotiating power to decrease the price. So let's say I listed it for $340 and I had to drop the price to $330. Now I'm only down to really not even $30,000 profit minus closing costs. So this potential deal could be a break even or a potential loss. So it will only make sense if they discounted it $20,000. So I would have to absorb that as the buyer. So if they can absorb that, right, then I can now fix and flip the property and then try to sell it and make at least a $25,000 to $30,000 profit, which I highly advise against if you're flipping properties. You should be making at least $30,000 to $40,000 minimum in a worst case scenario. Okay. Now, as I was walking this property, here's the things I saw that was red flags, right? The rehab cost they projected was wrong. The rehab cost they had put on here was $50,000. So there was $20,000 to $30,000 not even really making sense. And then the house had termites, had a flat roof. It was dated, kitchen was small, everything needed to be gutted out, right? It was almost like you had to gut the whole house. And it was a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. It wasn't 2 baths. In this economy, it doesn't make sense. You wanna have 2 baths. So the wholesaler didn't do a good job with his numbers, to be honest with you. So I can't give him no credit there. And if you're watching this, you're a wholesaler, I'm sorry, buddy. I don't think you did a good job with the numbers. Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I don't think they did a good job with that. And for me, it didn't make sense because it'll make sense to somebody who's buying cash. But even if you're buying cash, if I'm putting up $310,000 to only make possibly 10% on that money for 6 months of work, it might be good for you, but you're not really leveraging in this case. You want to leverage, you want to borrow money so you're not leveraging your $310,000 because you can leverage $310,000 across 5 deals and make close to $180,000. So why would I make 30 when I can make 180 if I spread it out? That's all I'm saying. That's how the game goes in real estate in general. So in this part of the video, what I really wanted to say to the seller was, hey man, I don't think this is gonna work out. And I had to hold my tongue and I had to hold my reservations because I didn't want to go and break anything between him and the wholesaler. And I'd be very mindful and respectful. But what I want to tell him is that I think you both have unrealistic expectations of how you're gonna sell this property. And I don't think you're being told the full process because the wholesaler was telling him that I was a contractor. Like everyone who was coming through the property had no clear identifier of who they truly were. And I don't like that sneaky aspect of this in real estate. It really just doesn't sit well with me. One, because people are already in a disadvantaged position and I get it, right? Everyone has to make their margin and I get that. But why not actually be forthcoming about the whole process? What I really want to tell them is like, hey man, you have to drop the price and I don't know what the hell's going on with you and this person and this doesn't make sense. So I just held my reservations back. I didn't say anything because that wasn't my place. And quite frankly, I didn't sign the contract. The seller should have did their own due diligence and vetting and everything. So I can't say anything about that. All I can see is that they both were in the wrong to me because the seller, I don't think he really understood that what was really going on with his property. I think he thinks that is worth more, but it's not. A house that's less than like 1,200 square feet, 3-bedroom, 1 bath. And what's really the 1,300 square feet is a patio that they enclose that has a mini split in the back. So it's not really, it's a lot of things going on with this property. But in all this, I say this, I think that if you're selling your property, it's better to go direct. I'll use it as a shameless plug. If you're looking to sell your property, I'm willing to buy and I'll be a direct buyer. And even if I do wholesale it, I'll make sure at least we work on the right numbers to start off with so we're not losing or you're not losing. Here are some few takeaways. Always examine a property if you're out of state. This is why I go check the property sometimes, or I send one of my bird dogs to check it out because this could have been a situation where had my student got this on the contract and gave the EMD, he would have lost it. Because when I walked it and did my analysis, we're like, nah, it's not gonna work. I would rather him lose $5,000 than get into a deal like this where he potentially will break even or lose more and waste time that he doesn't have. path. He can buy it, put money in another deal. But quick take on this is make sure you do your due diligence along the way. Don't hurry to rush up into deals, and don't get caught up in wholesalers telling you, oh, I got another buyer. Cool, if it's for you, it's for you. If you're acting in an urgent matter where you're trying to get the deal and you're trying to make it happen, then do that. But don't feel that pressure of, oh, nah, like that bark, that bite. It's not gonna make sense for you. So honestly, in this case, if you guys are looking for deals and you found this video helpful to you in any shape or any form, go ahead and comment below. If I would ask for you guys, if you need anything or any questions, book a discovery call. If you need funding on your deals, we can fund you in all 50 states. I'm an investor that actually do this, and I can help you navigate this space and make sure you avoid some pitfalls and errors that I've went through along the way. So if you found this video helpful to you, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, share this with a friend or someone who wants to get into real estate on how to deal with wholesalers or how not to even sell your property in general. So I look forward to connecting with you guys in one or two ways: lending in the community or in just doing a deal together. So this is Gene Garand. This is how to make real estate full circle. We'll see you guys on the next video.